Do you know what it feels like to discover your entire childhood was built on a lie, one so deep it erased an entire family member? David Whitmore's voice didn't crack when he said it, but behind his eyes a storm raged. He wasn't the kind of man who wore paint on his sleeve. He had built empires with silence and precision, but that day, standing at the edge of a hidden truth, his world had shifted beneath his feet. The name Whitmore, once carved in stone and pride, now felt like a mask, one that had hidden a sister, two nieces, and decades of stolen memories. He remembered the chill in Rachel's voice, the tremble of Chloe's hand in his, the way Emma's eyes searched his face like she was trying to find the part of him that still looked like her grandpa. Nothing had prepared him for this. Not the headlines, not the betrayal, not the impossible choice between legacy and love. And if you think that's the worst part of the story, stay right here, because what happens next will shake everything you thought you knew about family forgiveness and what it really means to start over. Wait, why did you just call him Grandpa? David Whitmore's voice caught in his throat as he stood still, the icy wind slicing through his coat and the weight of his father's name carved into the cold marble before him. Two little girls no older than 6 and 4 stood at the base of Richard Whitmore's grave. One of them, barely taller than the bouquet of crushed wildflowers in her hand, looked up at him with clear blue eyes that mirrored his own. And without flinching, she whispered, "We're here to see Grandpa." "Mommy said we could come today." David's heart slammed into his ribs like a fist. He glanced down at the inscription, Richard James Whitmore, 1945-2022, beloved husband, father, visionary, and then back at the girls dressed in threadbare coats, shoes, scuffed by life, their hair windblown but their faces defiant. They weren't crying. They weren't scared. They were supposed to be there. He was not. "Who told you this was your grandfather's grave?" he asked slowly, trying to suppress the sharp edge in his voice. The older girl, Chloe, as he would soon learn, held her ground. "Mommy told us. She's sick. She couldn't come." David swallowed. "What's your mommy's name?" The answer felt like a spark against dry paper. "Rachel Evans," Chloe said. "She's in the hospital now." Rachel Evans. The name meant nothing, but the eyes, those eyes haunted him. When he returned to his penthouse apartment in Boston that night, David didn't pour himself a drink. He didn't turn on the news. He sat in the dark, the vision of those children kneeling beside his father's grave, playing on repeat like a fever dream. Rachel Evans. Who was she? Why did her daughters have his eyes? He picked up the phone and called a number he hadn't dialed in months. "Michael, it's David. I need you to run a background check on someone. Her name is Rachel Evans. She has 2 little girls. They said they're my nieces." There was a pause. Michael Grant, the head of security at Whitmore Holdings and a former Boston PD detective, never asked unnecessary questions. "Send me what you have. I'll get on it tonight." By dawn, David hadn't slept a minute. The sun was rising over the Charles River, but all he could see were Chloe's eyes, his eyes. At 7:04 a.m., his phone buzzed. Michael's message was short, clinical, and shattering. Rachel Evans, age 28, single mother, admitted to St. Grace Memorial 3 days ago with pneumonia. Her daughters Chloe and Emma are currently staying at Hudson Shelter Center. Mother Helen Evans, deceased. No father listed, no father listed. Just like Rachel wasn't supposed to exist. But if his father had another child and kept it secret his entire life, what else had Richard Whitmore hidden? Later that morning, David made a rare decision. He drove himself. No driver, no assistance. Just him, silence, and a dozen unspoken questions tangled in the back of his mind. Hudson Shelter Center was tucked between 2 aging apartment blocks on the worn side of town. He almost drove past it until he saw the hand-painted sign and the faded red bricks that had long surrendered to time. He hesitated at the door, suddenly unsure. What was he going to say? "Hi, I think I might be your uncle." Or worse, "I'm here to uncover whether my father had a secret love child he never told anyone about." Before he could knock, a soft voice startled him. "Mr. Whitmore." He turned to find a woman with graying hair and a clipboard, her kind eyes studying him with equal parts curiosity and caution. "I'm Linda Robinson, director here. Chloe and Emma said they met someone at the cemetery yesterday. I never imagined it would be you." David forced a smile. "I didn't expect it either." She guided him to a small office cluttered with folders, a worn armchair, and the smell of cinnamon tea. Rachel's girls arrived 3 days ago when she was admitted to the hospital, Linda explained. They don't have anyone else. No known relatives. No father in the picture. Rachel's raised them alone since birth. David felt his throat tighten. They said my father, Richard Whitmore, was their grandfather. Is there any chance that's true? Linda paused, searching his face. Rachel once mentioned her mother had a relationship with a powerful man. Said he turned his back when she got pregnant. I didn't pry, but if that man was Richard Whitmore, then Rachel might be your sister. David leaned back. The room spun slightly. A sister. May I see the girls, he asked. They're in the playroom. Linda gave him a look that was gentle but serious. But please don't make promises you won't keep. These girls, they've already been through more than enough. He nodded. I just want the truth. The moment Chloe saw him through the playroom window, her face lit up. She tugged Emma's sleeve, and within seconds, the younger girl sprinted across the room straight into his arms. You came back, Emma beamed. David knelt to their level. Of course I did. Chloe looked up at him with a mixture of hope and suspicion. Are you going to help Mommy? I want to, David said, his voice catching. But first I need to understand everything. As he watched them return to their coloring books, it hit him with startling clarity. These girls weren't just the daughters of a stranger. They were a piece of the family his father had chosen to bury with silence. That evening, standing outside St. Grace Memorial Hospital, David rehearsed the words he wanted to say to the woman who might be his sister. But nothing came out right. When he finally stepped into room 412, he found Rachel Evans awake, a magazine in hand. Her hair was tangled, her skin pale, but her eyes, those unmistakable eyes, met his with instant recognition. You're David Whitmore, she said flatly. He nodded. And you're Rachel Evans. The room turned quiet. Your daughters found me, he said carefully, at my father's grave. Rachel didn't blink. They weren't supposed to go alone. I told Linda not to let them. They're okay, he said. They're brave and kind, and they look like me. A long silence. I know who you are, Rachel finally said. I've known since I was a kid. I saw you in the papers. My mom kept every clipping. She said you looked just like him, just like the man who sent her away with a check and a signature, promising never to speak his name again. David lowered his gaze. Are you saying my father? Yes, Rachel cut in. Richard Whitmore was my father, which makes you my brother. David sat heavily into the visitor's chair. Somewhere deep inside he had known, but hearing it out loud cracked something open. And yet this was only the beginning. To be continued. If you were David, what would you do next? Walk away from a buried past, or risk everything to embrace a family you never knew you had? If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and drop a heart if the story moved you. See you in part 2. Rachel didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even raise her voice. But what she said next hit David harder than if she'd slapped him across the face. My mother begged your father to acknowledge me. Just once. Not for money, not for power, just to say I existed. And he turned his back. David stared at her, the sterile hum of the hospital machines, barely masking the way his heart thundered. Why didn't she ever come forward publicly? Rachel gave a bitter smile. Because she was proud. Because she didn't want to be seen as another scandal in the Whitmore dynasty. She had me. That was enough. Until it wasn't. She looked away, blinking fast. When she died, I was 21. She left behind a box of letters she'd written but never sent. All to your father. Some begging, others angry, some just sad. But one letter was for you. David leaned forward. For me, Rachel pulled a worn envelope from the drawer beside her hospital bed. She handed it to him without ceremony. She wrote it when she saw you in the news. Said you reminded her of the man she once loved before he became a stranger. David opened it carefully. The handwriting was elegant, fragile. Dear David, it began. If ever this finds you, please know my daughter is not a stain on your family name. She is the best part of the man your father once was. His throat closed. It was like reading a confession from the dead, a truth that had been suffocated by silence. He folded the letter gently, his fingers trembling. I had no idea. "I believe you," Rachel whispered, "but it doesn't change what's been done." That night back in his penthouse, David couldn't sleep. His thoughts circled like crows: Rachel's hollow eyes, Chloe's quiet resilience, Emma's innocent smile, and beneath it all, the rotting foundation of a legacy built on lies. He poured himself a scotch, but left it untouched. In the morning, he visited his mother, Susan Whitmore, in their Carmel by the Sea estate, the woman who had always orchestrated life like a symphony, graceful, polished, calculated. She greeted him in her sunroom, the ocean breeze teasing the lace curtains. "David, darling," she said smoothly, "you look like you've seen a ghost." "I might as well have," he replied, tossing the envelope onto the glass table. Susan glanced at it, then sighed without opening it. "I knew this would come back eventually." "You knew?" His voice cracked. She didn't flinch. "Your father was weak. That woman, Helen Evans, tried to destroy everything we built. She seduced him, threatened scandal, tried to drag our name through the mud. She was 20. He was 48, David snapped. And she didn't ask for money. She asked for acknowledgement. And we gave her silence. The only gift that wouldn't ruin you," Susan said calmly, sipping her tea. David stood abruptly. "You didn't protect me. You poisoned the truth. You stole a sister I could have had my whole life." Susan looked up at him, for once losing her composure. "And what are you going to do now? Invite her to family dinners. Put her name on the company plaque. Give her his chair." David didn't answer, but she read his silence too well. "You'll regret it," she said coldly. "These things always end in scandal." He left without another word. Back in Boston, David returned to Hudson Shelter Center and found Chloe and Emma playing quietly in the courtyard. They ran to him without hesitation, their arms flung around his legs. "You came back," Emma beamed. "Always," he whispered, lifting her up. He sat with Linda Robinson, the center director, and signed the temporary guardian documents. Rachel would need time to heal. The girls needed stability. And somehow, deep in his bones, David knew he needed them just as much. When Rachel was released from the hospital 3 days later, she found herself standing in front of Lakewood Bay House, the secluded family cabin in New Hampshire, where David had spent summers as a child. He had cleared it out, stocked the kitchen, and lit the fireplace. She turned to him, stunned. "Why are you doing this?" David stared at the flames, then at her. "Because I should have known you all along. Because you're not a secret anymore. And because I want you to be part of my life, not just someone I visit out of guilt." Rachel hesitated. "This doesn't fix everything." "I know," he said quietly. "But it's a start." That evening, as the girls curled up on the rug with their new books and the storm rolled across the lake, Rachel watched David tuck Emma in with a tenderness she didn't expect from a man raised behind glass walls and marble gates. "You're different than I imagined," she said softly. David looked up. "What did you expect?" She smiled faintly. "A cold-hearted billionaire." He grinned. "That was last week." The moment felt peaceful, whole. But just as Rachel began to breathe easier, the past roared back in the form of an email David received the next morning from the board of Whitmore Holdings. Subject: urgent concern regarding paternity scandal. Attached was a press draft anonymous tip submitted to a major media outlet. Someone had leaked the story, and the leak hadn't come from Rachel. David's blood ran cold. His mother had made her move. He closed the laptop, jaw clenched. This wasn't over. It was only just beginning. And next time it would be public. If you were in Rachel's shoes, would you stay in the shadows to protect your children or step into the spotlight to claim your truth? Thank you for watching. If this part moved you, please give the video a like and drop a heart to show your support. I'll see you in part 3. The storm had finally come, not the one over the lake, but the one David feared most. By morning, the tabloids were everywhere. Billionaire heir linked to secret sister and hidden grandchildren. The Whitmore scandal unfolds. Illegitimate child of Richard Whitmore comes forward after his death. The media had sunk its teeth in, and they wouldn't let go. David sat in the boardroom of Whitmore Holdings, facing a dozen pale, stiff, pinstriped executives who had once treated him like a god. Now they looked at him like a liability. David, one of them, said carefully, "We need to know how you plan to contain this." "Contain," he echoed. "She's my sister. Those girls are my family. I'm not hiding them to make you feel comfortable." Another board member, older, shrewder, leaned forward. This isn't personal. It's business. Investors don't like scandal. David stood. Then maybe they should find someone else to lead this company. The room went dead silent. You're resigning, someone whispered. David met every gaze around the table. No, I'm redefining what this family stands for. And if anyone has a problem with that, there's the door. He walked out without waiting for a reply. Later that afternoon, he found Rachel at Lakewood Bay House sitting on the dock staring across the water. The air was crisp. A breeze rippled through the pines. And for the first time in a long time, her shoulders weren't tense. She didn't turn around when he joined her. It's everywhere, isn't it? He nodded. All of it. She gave a hollow laugh. This was never about money, David. I don't want their pity or the headlines. I know, he said gently. But it's not about them anymore. It's about us, our family, what we choose to build from the wreckage. She turned to him, tears glistening but unshed. Are you sure you're willing to lose everything for people you just met? He reached out, covering her hand with his. I didn't lose anything. I found you. That night, while the girls slept in the cozy upstairs loft and the fire crackled low, Rachel finally opened the box of her mother's letters. She handed David the last one. It was sealed, never read. This one, Rachel said, voice barely audible, was for the man she hoped you'd become. David opened it slowly, the paper fragile with time. Dear David, if ever you find your way to Rachel, protect her the way your father never did. And if you have a heart strong enough, love those girls like they're your own blood, because they are. She deserves the name your father denied her. Not for power, but for peace. Be better than he was. He folded it with care emotion, tightening his throat. She had more grace than any of us. The following week, David held a press conference not to do damage control, but to tell the truth. He stood in front of reporters from every major outlet, the Whitmore Company logo glowing behind him. My name is David Whitmore. I am the CEO of Whitmore Holdings. And yes, I have a sister. Her name is Rachel Evans, and she is the daughter of my late father, Richard Whitmore. She and her daughters, Chloe and Emma, are part of my life now and always will be. Flashes went off. 1,000 murmurs filled the room. But David continued steady and unwavering. My father made mistakes, but I won't carry them forward. I choose truth. I choose healing. And I hope the world learns to do the same. When he stepped down from the podium, Rachel was waiting backstage. She looked at him with tears streaming silently, pride glowing in her smile. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Weeks later, Susan Whitmore, his mother, showed up at Lakewood unannounced. She stood at the edge of the property watching Chloe and Emma chase each other through fallen leaves. Rachel saw her first. You really think she came to fight again? David shook his head. No, I think she came to surrender. Susan approached slowly. Her posture, usually stiff and commanding, now wilted with age and guilt. I brought something, she said quietly, holding out a jewelry box. It belonged to your grandmother. I want the girls to have it, if Rachel will allow it. Rachel took it cautiously, then looked into Susan's eyes. I'll never forget what you did, she said honestly. Susan nodded. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking for a chance to be part of what comes next. There was silence. Then Rachel stepped aside. Come in. That fall, Lakewood became something new. Laughter echoed through the trees. The fireplace never went cold. And for the first time in decades, the Whitmore family felt like more than a name on a plaque. David stood by the water with Rachel one evening, watching the sunset bleed into the lake. I spent years thinking legacy was about control, he said, but maybe it's about redemption. Rachel smiled. And choosing who gets to write the next chapter. He turned to her. Then let's write it together. And they did. Now let me ask you, if your life was built on a lie, would you risk everything to find your truth? And if someone wronged your family but wanted to make it right, would you let them? What did you think of this story? If you felt moved, comment number 3 below. If you're unsure, write number 2. And if you felt something was missing, comment number 1. Also, where in the world are you watching from? We'd love to hear from you. Please drop a heart and share this story with someone who believes in second chances.